How can I go about finding my first sponsors?
Like, I would literally just run an ad in your newsletter, trying to get people to run ads in your newsletter.
And all of a sudden people are reaching out like, hey, there's an ad in here. Like, how can I be this ad?
Do cross promos still work?
Are there any good AI written newsletters?
I think there probably are. We probably just don't know that they're AI written newsletters.
Tyler, what's up? We are back with another Q&A episode for the newsletter nerds out there. Let's jump straight into it. I got question one right here. Okay, so this first question is one I got via a private DM. They don't necessarily want their name shared, but I'll just launch into it. So they basically say, hey, Louis, I just launched a newsletter for marketers a few months ago, and already I've got 20,000 subscribers. Really, I just kind of started the newsletter to be marketing for my agency. But now that it's big, I actually want it to make money. I've got some really, really strong names and brands on the email list, and I have good, strong opens and clicks. How can I go about finding my first sponsors? Tyler, you run a sponsored newsletter. How do you do it?
Well, first of all, that's a bit of a brag there. That's pretty impressive that you grew a newsletter to 20,000 subscribers. I imagine you're not saying his or her name because we'd probably know this person, because that's pretty impressive. But first of all, that's awesome that you're there. And I think, like 10 to 20,000 subs is probably where you should start monetizing or thinking about monetizing a B2B newsletter, probably a little bit more for a more consumer facing newsletter. I think the answer to how do you get your first sponsor is look at your list, right? I think that's the most obvious part. Like, the people who want to reach other businesses are already in your list.
Interesting.
And so
that was going to be my number two. Okay. Let's keep
so
going.
Like, I would literally just run an ad in your newsletter, trying to get people to run ads in your newsletter. Like, that would be absolutely the number one way. And then I think you could also, no free plugs here, but there's tools like MegaHit, or you could go out and just use Apollo. Like, I would just run your newsletter list, especially since it's probably a lot of B2B or business newsletters. I would run it through like an Apollo, find the people that you think would be good fits, and reach out to them and ask if they want to be advertisers. Like, those, I would just start there. And then obviously you could start doing stuff that's more traditional reach out or working with an ad agency, but start with your newsletter 100%.
Interesting. I like that idea. I was definitely going to suggest looking at your own list as well. What do you think about looking at competitor newsletters? Because that was going to be my first suggestion.
I think that's kind of when you start doing your own reach out, which I guess was second on my list, like, that's where you start, right? Is like, that's how you do your prospecting. Is you go to one of the many tools, or you could just make an inbox or use AI to do it. But yeah, just go have somebody rip all the sponsors from all of your competitors' newsletters and reach out to them. And I think we talked about it in a previous podcast. Like, if you can go to them and say like, hey, saw you worked with XYZ, I think that we can perform, or we've been proven to perform, X% better according to these sponsors, like, let's work together. So I think that's a great point, but I would just start, the easiest thing is to get inbound, right? So I would start with some inbound, especially if it's a weekly or even a monthly, like, you don't have that much inventory to fill up.
Yeah. I mean, I think I know this guy. He's going to give him the nickname of G, which is the starting letter to his name. He does it daily, which is it's a lot of work to put out, but they stumbled onto like a little bit of a gold mine of like marketing, interesting stuff.
Cool.
They just go really well on Instagram and TikTok, which is how they grow. I was definitely going to go kind of the who sponsors stuff. What are the other newsletters in your space route first?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've talked in the past, I think, about easy places to find those, like Newsletter Radar from Sparkloop. You have like Kit's Creator Network, Beehive and Substack have their own like ways to find similar newsletters. You can ask your own audience as well what else they read. I've heard a couple of people will, like, especially this guy says he has an agency. Like, presumably it's not the name of his newsletter. So presumably he could legit reach out to, like, if once he's made that list of like, let's say the 30 newsletters that are most similar to his, he could reach out to them, to those other newsletters, and like ask for the sponsorship deck and basically find out like exactly what they're charging and like some of their case studies and stuff, right? And use that stuff. It's a little bit sketchy, but I think it's still just above the line of acceptable. A lot of people do that in business. I think everyone, like, you would not be surprised, like, the number of competitors to Sparkloop who've like been on demos with us and have accounts with us under different names. Like it's just accepted at this point that you're going to do that.
Yeah. It's competitive analysis, not necessarily espionage, right? Because you're being open about it. If they were smart enough, they could catch it.
So I think I would go there. And then I would definitely follow up on like your second suggestion, like I guess your first, my second suggestion of like looking at your own list, emailing everybody in there. One of the things that I've definitely seen recently, I don't know what your take is on this, but if you can find a brand that has just sponsored a newsletter like yours, those brands are going to get like dozens of emails from everybody, especially if they get featured in like who sponsors stuff or one of those directories. They're going to be inundated with with requests, right? So I think you kind of probably have to do something to break through the noise there. I'd be going like the social route, reaching out to those people. Maybe not even initially with the request for sponsorship. Like I might actually take the route of be like, hey, I'm writing about this topic. You're an expert. Can I get a quote from you? And then circle back like a week later with like, hey, here's the thing. By the way, you'd be a really great fit for this. I saw you sponsored this. And like you've already built up the rapport. They're excited. I think that like you have to do something to break through the noise, because we have that even at Sparkloop since we've sponsored newsletters in the past. Like I get literally 50 requests a week from newsletters asking, like a lot of them are a good fit or most of them aren't. Like I don't even bother to read through anymore because there's just too many requests, and I assume that it's all like it's not worth my time to find the good one, right?
Yeah. So what I've kind of realized, and this isn't for everyone, but being kind of a smaller shop still for the newsletter side, I tend to let the ad agencies that I work with go and do that, right? Because they're going to reach out and it actually works in my favor, right? Like obviously I'm paying them for it, but they're going to do all that work and look at who sponsors stuff and go and do the reach out. But they're much more likely to sign them because they're going to come to them with like a bunch of newsletters and stuff. So I tend to let them do that. And then any reach out that I do tends to be like a brand that I truly think will be like a great fit that I saw on social, right? And then I can like really write them an email and say like, hey guys, like I think this is going to work really well. And then the other thing I've started to do is look at newsletters that are in just like a very, very different space and see if I can kind of convince them to come over to, to our space. And if there's some sort of angle there for the advertiser. And I found like a lot of these advertisers kind of like pick a niche and they kind of run with it. So like I've started to look at more like B2B newsletters, right? Because there's a decent amount of people, a lot of professionals in my newsletter. It's not always like a perfect fit, but maybe I can offer them something and I offer it to them at a discount, right? But it's still a pretty good fit and they get results from it. I don't make as much money, but I'm maybe filling some of my slots that I wouldn't have otherwise. So I agree with you. It's tough when it's just like, look at who sponsored other newsletters. But I think sometimes it's like thinking a little bit outside the box and like reaching out to people, that you either see on social or maybe in just like a totally different vertical that you could see there being an angle or a thread there.
The one other thing that I would add is, seeing as this is like very clearly like a newsletter for marketers, marketing is like pretty well represented audience on like ad networks and places. So one thing I might consider doing, I don't have a ton of like hard data to like back up that this is a good thing to do, but it feels intuitively like you probably should do it, is to maybe reach out to go on one of these ad networks. Paved, Beehive has their own, Kit has their own, there's a couple of others, and to find, there will be at least one brand in there that is like a really good fit for your audience. And obviously you would prefer to work with them direct. If you don't have any sponsors in your newsletter yet, I would just put one into your newsletter of those and basically not care about how much money you actually make from running that ad, but care about A, what it tells you about your ability to drive performance for sponsors, and B, use it as a case study. Like you don't have to mention that you didn't work together directly. You can talk about how many leads you drove for them. You can talk about how many clicks and opens they got, right? That is proof. And also just like from my own experience with my own newsletter, I did that sort of like classic thing of like, hey, your ad could be here and a link to the deck. And I got a bit of interest, but honestly, not as much as I expected. And then I actually ran an ad a couple of weeks later, the first one. And all of a sudden people were reaching out like, hey, there's an ad in here. Like, how can I be this ad next time? And that was kind of frustrating. Maybe I just did the your ad slot here thing wrong. But something in like seeing the ad there and realizing it could be you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's powerful to do the like an ad, right? Again, even it could just be like an affiliate offer, right? Like, say I didn't have advertisers for the water coolest, I could just go and use like my Robinhood affiliate offer and be like, oh wow, he's advertising with Robinhood. That's a company I've heard of. And then you put underneath like looking to sponsor this space, right? And it's just a link to your media kit or Calendly or something. I think that's really powerful. And I think it's a good point. Just to wrap up this question, I think you could put, more like CPA, CPC type ad stuff in there. And I think that's like a good way to start. And especially if you have like a crazy engaged audience, as you mentioned you have, like you're probably going to convert fairly well. And if nothing else, you're going to find out what kind of audience you have pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, CPA deals, CPC, like they get a ton of hate because newsletters that aren't very good and rely on ad networks don't make much money from them because they're actually getting paid for more closely to the value that they're actually generating, which is nowhere near as much as they wish or they think. So I definitely agree with that. For a good newsletter, you can do some really good stuff with that. Taylor, should we move on to question number 2?
So I got this one. Someone asked me, do cross promos still work for newsletter growth, or is everything just recommendation widgets now? Super curious on your thoughts here. Obviously, recommendation widgets pretty well. I have mixed feelings about cross promos. And so just so everyone knows, I think what we mean here is basically, promoting a newsletter in somebody else's newsletter, right? So, I work with ExecSum. We, they put a plug about us. We put a plug about them. We hope to send each other, newsletter subscribers. I'll say one thing. I think the biggest problem with them is it takes a lot of work and the ROI typically isn't there, right? Like even for somebody, like my size, about 100,000 subscribers with the water coolest, like if someone's throwing me 100 or 200 subscribers, like that's what I'm churning over a couple of days, right? So it just doesn't move the needle all that much. And it's just hard to convince people to, to opt into something or just take any sort of action, which is, part of the problem with, as we were just talking about, like some cost per acquisition, deals. Like if you're just looking for an app download or something, right? It's just like, it's hard to convert a lot of people to do anything. It's not easy. And then there's just so much back and forth of like convincing people to do it and then sending them the assets, right? There's not like a great way to, to do this automatically. I will say, I love the kind of going back on what I just said. I do love the idea of it, right? And that's why I still struggle with it, because I love the fact of, depending on who you're working with, if it is someone like relatively close, say I'm working with a crypto newsletter, like I love the idea of having people being able to like choose what newsletter they want. So I think some people feel like, oh, if I'm introducing to, more of a competitor, we're kind of like swapping newsletters, or we're killing my newsletter. I actually look at it as like a positive, because I want someone to find a newsletter that they really love. And I'm pretty convinced that my newsletter is fucking awesome and that they're going to want to come over to my newsletter. And so I think you have to be like really confident in that your newsletter is great. And the fact that a subscriber is going to be more engaged with my newsletter is going to be fantastic for my business at the end of the day. And if I'm losing some subscribers because they're not super engaged in my newsletter and they're going over and finding something else, like that's fine. Like hopefully it just, works in my favor more than it doesn't. So I would say they work. I think they're really good at the beginning. Like when you're just starting a newsletter, it's a really good way to get some like free subscribers flowing in and to like really find out who your audience is and like where you can convert from. But I would say like as you get bigger, it's probably not worth the lift if you don't have the team and capacity to do it.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you argued both sides so well there. I don't have, I have to say all that.
It's like I guess it's like the subscribers are good. It's just like, it's a pain in the ass to do, right? Like it's, if you want to do things that don't scale, like you always hear, entrepreneurs say that, it's like, this is one of those things that doesn't really scale that well, like go do it.
Obviously recommendations widgets, like they take zero work and they scale infinitely with everything else that you're doing, right? Especially like I like Kit's implementation of the free recommendations, where they almost guarantee that if you send one, you will receive one at some point through their smart recommendations feature. So I do like obviously recommendations widgets, and I think they are much more impactful in general, like on a per minute or per dollar spent basis for sure. That said, like I do like cross promotions. I think they're underrated. I think they've kind of fallen out of favor in the newsletter space. Whereas like
because of people
weirdly
like me hating on them.
No, but like they're really big in some weird areas of like the email list internet, and they work really well there. There's a whole bunch of people I know who are like, they're in Facebook groups and they do cross promotions for each other's like crocheting email lists and stuff, and that's how they grow, and it works super well. But I think the thing you need to do is you probably need a virtual assistant. It's not a lot of work. It's not super expensive. But if you just give them like the SOP, the operating procedure for this, like the playbook, and you just tell them do one of these a week, I think that actually works really well. You know, it's probably not going to be huge, but you only have to convert a couple of hundred subscribers each time, and it's no work for you, and it's worth the $20, $50, whatever you're paying them each week to do that. In no brainer. I think the other thing is to two additional things here real quick. One is actually just to give a quick Sparkloop plug. We did something kind of fun about 2 weeks ago that we haven't really talked about very much, which is when you put a recommendation for someone inside of your newsletter. So basically like an email, like you're cross-promoting with them, right? Like you're using the link for them in Sparkloop inside of your newsletter to share with your audience. We actually have this fun thing where after they like click on the page and they subscribe to that newsletter, they get shown other recommendations for other newsletters that are paid. And we're now seeing people like make a free recommendation, for example, to the Water Coolest, but they're actually earning like 50 cents to $1.50 per subscriber that they send through, because they're also opting into like one or two other newsletters as well. Like they're finding other stuff that they like. Because if we know that they like your newsletter, we know that they like the Water Coolest as well. We're really good at giving them 3 or 4 other newsletters that they will like if they like both of those. So that makes it like a little bit less of a like it's not just about the 100 subscribers. You're also making $100, $150 at the same time, which is kind of like makes it a little bit more worth it, softens the blow. And the last thing I'll say on that is that
is that widget like do you guys do like the Magic Link thing, or how does the actual mechanics of that work? Because I've actually never used it.
So we actually invented Magic Links like that. There was a thing called Magic Links before. We invented that. Graciously, the rest of the industry decided that they would decide to also call it Magic Links just to avoid any confusion. But we're happy to take the naming for that one. We used to do Magic Links when we invented them. Now we have something slightly different. We still call it Magic Links just because that's what people think of as like the one click. But because like we were talking about on the main episode, 90% of clicks are now by bots, and they're getting really sophisticated. We actually have a slightly different process, which is you click on the link and then you click again on a page to confirm. Like you see like a splash landing page, like a minimal landing page, kind of like almost like a social profile. And you click confirm again on that page. And that's where we do some smart stuff to make sure it's actually you and not a bot, or not not your email provider doing it for you, which is like the Substack Beehive problem that they have, which is if you ever noticed, like
and I think crazy. I think that I like that because it takes, well, I guess you are adding a little friction back, but I like the idea of the Magic Link because it removes some of the friction. Like I think that's some of the problem with why like a true kind of free referral works so much better than like a cross promo, because a cross promo is like an ad. You have to read the ad. You have to convince yourself that it's worth signing up for, click it, and then go in there and actually enter your email address. And it's just, I know as I'm saying it doesn't sound like a lot of work, but any sort of friction on the internet is too much friction. And so I think the fact that you can remove it there, does make a lot of sense. And I actually haven't really dabbled with Magic Links on any platform, and partially because of what you said, right? It's like my fear is that, there are just a lot of crappy clicks coming through, or crappy leads coming through because it's just a fake click, right? So it's picking up. But I mean, it's good to hear that you guys are fixing that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't when we invented it, right? That was like 5% of clicks were maybe bot driven. Now that it's 90%, it's more of an issue. So we had to do something about that. Yeah. I guess the one last thing I'll say on the cross promotions is like I've had the most success with this, and the people I've seen who've had the most success with this have been doing it not with their newsletter, but with lead magnets, kind of a bit like we talked about on the main episode. So Like, what is the single best thing you've ever produced or you've produced recently in terms of content? More difficult for the water coolest because it's doesn't fit the format. But like for my newsletter, I can
there's
give
nothing
that.
great that we've produced in a while.
You said it. I didn't say it. So, so those open and click rates aren't as inflated for you. Huh? Those are no. But like, I think that works really well, right? Like people want, like I want to share good content in the newsletter space. If someone reached out to me, like if Nathan May's done that a few times and said like, "Hey, I created this really cool thing," I'm like, dude, like I want to share this really good stuff. I'm going to share, like, unless you're a direct competitor to me or I just don't like you personally, of course, I'm going to share your thing. Like, it's cool. And the one thing that you can do is like a sweetener to that is where, like, I think you blend recommendations and cross promotions is like the magic words for this is literally just a bunch of other people with our audience are going to share this as well. And everyone who says they're going to share it is going to be in my recommendations widget. So you'll get seen by all of their subscribers as well. And that's literally how I launched my own newsletter. I got 5,400 subscribers in the first 2 days for free, literally just by doing that. I created some like a lead magnet. I gave it to like 12 people and I told them each, hey, you'll be in my recommendations widget when everyone shares this. They all got like 1,000 subscribers each. I got 5,000 because I was the one that organized it. And that's crazy. That doing that every week or doing that every month, even if you just do it once a month, that really moves the needle. Because you could go out to like, you could build like a group of like 10 newsletters that do this semi-regularly, and that would move it. That would be worth it.
Okay. So it works. You can make it work. I think I think what I'm taking away is like, it definitely depends on the niche and like how you sell it, what the actual mechanics of it are, right? There's a lot of nuance to it. So I think, probably me just saying like, hey, I'm going to swap in a newsletter. It's probably not worth it. But maybe if I put, a lead magnet around it, I start using magic links, like I could probably see that ROI tick up where I'm like, okay, it's worth hiring a VA to literally just go and run this playbook with a ton of newsletters.
Like, I wonder if there's like, is there something that like your ideal audience would really like? Because I know you can't do a lead magnet, but is there something fun you could do for the water coolest? Like, could you, for example, like you give the spiel of like, so you tell people, hey, like tell them to sign up for this newsletter. It's by Tyler. 100,000 people love his like take on like the daily finance news. And then you do something that like seals the deal so that it's only people who are going to like your sort of like kind of like, unique brand of like humor and like viewpoint. It's going to speak directly to those people and turn off the people who aren't going to like it. Plus it's going to like give those people something to opt into, like something fun. So like, I don't know, could you do like, you were talking about the other week with your referral or like new referral program.
Yeah.
You were doing the drinks thing. Like, could you do something there where you're like, oh, and by the way, one person who opts into this is going to get, I don't know, like I'm not in like all my finance friends used to be in that were in London. So like there are a couple of bars in that part of London where it's like, I know that if I say, oh, and I'll get you that particular bottle that sits behind the counter at Seahorse, for example, like,
right.
Anyone who I want on my, like in that audience is going to be like, oh, this guy gets me. Like, yes, obviously I want that stupid thing, right?
Yeah, it's like I think this has a negative connotation. I probably shouldn't even say this, but it's like the dog whistling thing, right? It's like speaking to only those people that like want to hear it. And to your point about the referral thing that I tried, like that's what I was putting in that little extra step of like, send this to your friend who, thinks XYZ, like is long NVIDIA or like hates Jamie Dimon, like whatever it is. It's like all that little inside joke. And I think that really helps. I also agree with you on like, how can I almost like cut out the people who I don't want? And I think it is like, even with the language of showing, what, how I speak in the newsletter and like, hey, it's not for everybody, but if it is for you, you're going to fucking love it and be obsessed with it. And those are the only people I want anyways.
Yeah. I bet there must be something fun you can do there. That's like, I don't know if you have like any, like if you could like buy some swag from like, I guess we're a little bit past that, but like some, I don't know, like some Merrill Lynch swag or something. And like, that could be the thing that you give away. Like one person's going to get this t-shirt or something.
Yeah. A banker bag full of Zins or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Should we move on to question number 3, the final one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So they say, I've seen a bunch of newsletters written by AI and I think they're awful. They're written by AI. They're only read by bots. and they are monetizing for cents on the dollar by scraping by with things like ad networks. I'll bleep out the name of the ad network there, and they're making hardly any money. Are there any good AI written newsletters? Is this just me? What's going on? What do you think, Tyler? Have you ever seen a good AI written newsletter?
Here's the thing. I think there probably are good AI written newsletters, and we probably just don't know that they're AI written newsletters because they're that good. So my theory is I actually think that, yes, like there's the obvious, filled with M dashes, like all the textbook AI things. There's a lot of just AI slop out there, especially, I get so many in the finance space that I'm, magically, I find my way onto their list. So there's a lot of garbage out there. I totally agree with you, but I also think it's probably going to come out. And I'm not saying this because I know anything, but I would not be surprised if like one of the big newsletters, like it comes out that it's, 75, 80% AI written. So I know this question is probably saying like totally AI written, but like I think we're probably getting really close, and there's probably some companies that are spending a lot of money and have hired some really great like AI engineers or prompt engineers, whatever you want to call them, to figure out this problem. So I think there's probably going to be a newsletter, maybe in the next year that is like absolutely killer, that you think is written by a person, some sort of influencer in some sort of space, and you have absolutely no idea that it's written by AI. So I'm pretty convinced that I'm actually already reading newsletters that are good, that are, I don't know, 75, 80% written by AI. Like, I'm not anywhere close to that with the Water Coolest, but I'm using the Water Coolest as a research assistant to, kind of help me with, with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the markets, just kind of reading through other sources to make sure that I have everything right. And that's just stuff that I built on my own. And I'm not good at this stuff, and I have no budget, and I have, no resources. So when I think about like some of these bigger players who, just want to squeeze more margin out of these things, like I think it's absolutely happening. And I would not be surprised if maybe not now, but like one of your favorite big newsletters that you think is written by a human is probably not going to be written by a human soon.
Interesting. I think it's so difficult, right? Like there's definitely newsletters that probably in the near future can't be 100% written by AI. And when I think about that, I think about like a human not even really being involved. Maybe like a quick glance just to make sure it hasn't got all grok.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
I know what
that.
you mean by that.
Sorry, I'm terminally.
It hasn't gone like Elmo. I don't know if you saw Elmo's Twitter was hacked.
Yes. Yeah, it hasn't done that. So let's yeah. But other than that, like 100%, because like I have got into the habit now of like editing a lot of my posts with AI. And have I written that? Like I wrote an article. It's not the exact same words, right? Like it's in some cases it's pretty heavily edited, right? Like it's all the same ideas, all the same content wrapped differently. Like, is that really still me writing it? I would say probably more yes than no, but who knows?
You're saying you write the first edit, the first draft of it, and then you let AI kind of do either edit it or say, where can I punch it up a little bit? Is that how you're using it?
Basically, the way that I do things, I'll write the first draft. I then give it to ChatGPT, to O3, and I say basically like, you are a newsletter expert and a really strong writer. Right. Here is the context of like my other, like some previous editions of my newsletter to look at and to understand. Here is my draft. Edit this, write it to be engaging and to be easy to understand. It's basically more or less my exact prompt. It will then give me something. And that's something like, I don't just then copy and paste it. What I do is I like go through sort of like concept for concept, paragraph for paragraph, and I'll sort of copy it in and then remove one bit, keep one thing the old way, mix them, blend them. Like it ends up being a mix of the two, but very often it will have like very good ideas, but then it will just miss something that was important, or it will be, sometimes it's too brief more often than not, or it like hallucinates some stat that just isn't true, right? Yeah. So like it's not as simple as like taking the edit. It's more of like I write something, ChatGPT is a better writer than me, but is worse at writing any one individual article. So it gives me like a really fresh take.
Yep.
And then I take the good bits from that and split them out.
Yeah.
I've seen other people do that. Matt McGarry does that as well. There's a bunch of newsletter operators who are essentially doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I think where it does a good job is either kind of filling in the gaps or like filling in your blind spots where you might not understand something or you might have forgotten some past context or something. I think that's where it's super helpful. And that's a lot of how I use it. I kind of use it on both sides. So a little different than you is like, I'll feed it, okay, here's one of the headlines that I want to write about today. And, in the water coolest. And I'll almost like, sometimes if it's like really deep, I'll run it like deep research on it and be like, okay, what's all the context to this? What should I be thinking about from like historical, what the impact on market is? And then I'll kind of use that, literally have side by side. And as I'm writing my article, I have that in the background. And then again, I kind of run it through and I almost like use it as an editor to review and be like, yeah, one, you're the best writer on earth. And two, you are a financial analyst, right? So you're like trying to pick this apart because, not only do I have to be funny and engaging every day, but like in theory should be right about what I'm telling people. Because, at the end of the day, it's definitely not financial advice, but, it's towing the line. And unfortunately, some people are dumb enough to use it as financial advice. So
I like how your prompts to ChatGPT are basically the same affirmations you say to yourself in the morning and the morning in the mirror. Like everyone is like, you're an excellent writer and you're a really smart financial analyst and your family loves you. It's all okay.
Yes, I just say it over and over again. I guess the one thing I will say is like going back to this question is as we talk through this, there's probably not a newsletter that's like 100% written. And I will point out that, or a good newsletter that's 100% written. There's a lot of newsletters that are 100% written.
There are agencies now, by the way. I've seen a couple of agencies popping up where it's like $300, $400, $500 a month.
Yes.
For that, I'm never like I have no idea how good they are. So
yeah,
not weighing in on it, but I would be interested to see who that's going to do really well for.
I will say the one thing that I think we probably both notice, and this is why we're both not doing it 100%, is it really is like that last mile or that last 1%, like to get it over the finish line, or even like little technical stuff of like getting it from like I pick an article, getting it into ChatGPT, getting it into Beehive and like getting to send, like to get all of that lined up to like truly work without human automation and trust it enough is like, we're still pretty far away from that, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I would totally agree. I think the one thing that I would say is if I'm trying to think through how would you do this? So not necessarily like the sending part, but like the actual content creation part, right? Where you could literally just copy and paste it into your ESP every week or every day. I wonder if I think local news has a big opportunity for this because you can aggregate it, right? You don't need to be that good where the quality comes in. If you're doing this to like upsell leads into your realtor business or whatever it is, right? I wonder if there's a version of this where to do this, you paradoxically have to go super, super heavy on the personality. And if at some point we'll have like a, what are those like Anon accounts? We'll have an Anon account that is just this, like they are masquerading as like an expert, like viral growth marketer or an expert in like the finance industry or something. Like
I think I pitched this to you as when the college student asked how he should.
I
was like, I think you should just say like, I'm an expert in, maybe not like law or something or a doctor, but like you could be like, I'm a CFO or a CMO or something. Right? It's like, a little deep research goes a long way with doing something. I'm 100% sure that somebody's doing that already. Like they're building that anonymous account. And I think like that gravy train is probably ended because of this.
And you could just tell stories. Like if you're scraping like Blind or one of these sites where people share like workplace grievances or like the internal stuff, like if AI has access to that, it can come up with some really good stuff that it's not going to fool someone who currently works there, but it's going to fool the kind of people who are interested in like this sort of like insider mad crazy stories from the world of finance or whatever it is.
But it's kind of perfect because you could just hide behind the anonymity and say, well, I can't share the company's name, but like here's the story, right? And it'd be pretty hard for people to back into it.
Because you're expecting someone who's AI to really like lean heavily into like I'm a real person if they're trying to come off as that, not to be like, you don't even know if I'm like who I am. Like it changes the question from are you a human to who are you? And the last one that I think there's like the opportunity around this is once AI cracks interviews, then I think you get really good newsletters. Like AI has the potential already to like, it could write me a really good newsletter every week interviewing a different newsletter operator. That content would be amazing. The challenge is just getting AI to actually do the questions and put that together in the right way and to like do the follow-ups at the right time and everything. Once it can actually do that and just organize everything, I think that's when you get the first like really, really like legitimately like I would happily read it every week one, because then it's not about you're kind of cheating because you're not relying on the AI to provide the content, you're just relying on someone else. But I guess I guess it kind of counts.
For one of my clients, I basically built this out, but to your point, it was like not to the point where we were using ChatGPT like to actually do the interviews, but they actually shut down the project. But we were working.
They didn't know what they'd invented.
It was going so well that they shut it down. They pivoted the business, okay. But we were doing interviews and like that. We were doing them. We had some like a VA doing them, and we were building out something to have ChatGPT do them. So like, and I actually think Alex Lieberman is building something out like this. I don't know if you saw his kind of latest product.
With StoryUp. Is that the one?
No. I think he basically built it because he's probably doing something like that in StoryUp, but it's actually like a not ChatGPT tool, an AI tool that conducts interviews, like creates content based on it. And I haven't really played around with it, but I believe the idea is it's, AI is actually conducting these interviews with the prompts that you give them. And if you're doing something where you're asking pretty similar questions to CMO every week, I think that's something you could do fairly easily. And then like, you could kind of build in some FAQ or like, typical routes that they're going to go and, kind of get ahead of those things. And chat, the AI is just going to get better. So yeah, I think that is actually a really good way to use it. That doesn't feel like AI to me, right? Like it feels
cheating a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like using tech and AI, but it's not really like an AI generated newsletter because you're using truly like a person's words, right?
Any good newsletter has something unique, right? It has someone's insights that you can't find somewhere else, or it has it distilled in like into an opinion or like I guess a way of writing. Like maybe that's where AI comes in, where it's like I don't know, like maybe there's going to be one that like explains finance to people who really like vampires and werewolves, or like people who like the Avengers or something, right? Like there's going to be like that puts it all into that context, or like explain maths to me like I'm a 5-year-old kind of thing. Probably would be really good at. Maybe there's some stuff like that. I don't know.
There's a whole Reddit like that, but yeah, I think it's a lot of that stuff is coming like the more personalized and like in AI. But yeah, it probably my answer to this question is like, yeah, there's like the clear AI slop. And then I think there's people who are probably really close to being able to create an AI newsletter that we have no idea is AI.
That'd be cool. I'm excited to see like the announcement, the unveiling of the first one, where someone like takes the mask off and they're like, yeah, this was a computer the whole time.
But like, why couldn't the Skim do that? Right? Like there's no real voice. Like it's like a general voice, but it's like, you don't feel like you're connected to a person. Or even like the Morning Brew, they say at the bottom who wrote it. I think they still do that. It's not like you feel like a true connection with the person. It's like this generic voice. So what's the difference if it's coming from AI?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a risk management thing at this point, right? Like a human is not going to mess up in the ways that AI potentially might, and there is no backlash to using a human. And if you run a newsletter that makes 10, 20, $50 million a year, and you're paying your writer, let's be very generous and assume that it's $200,000, but it's not. It's right. Really not. Like it's a rounding error, right? Like the tech guy who's going to build you the AI and like tweak it and optimize it for you costs more than just having the writer. And there's no potential of like a huge scandal and you getting canceled, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I think it's got to get better. But I think it eventually will happen. But I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Letterheads, for hanging out with us in Letterland, and we will see you guys next week.
We will. See you later. Bye-bye.